Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Dave Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm sitting here with Dr. Christopher Sindt, who's our provost at Lewis, and this is another installment of Conversations from Stritch. As we end this week, I wanted to start my comments with just an immense thank you and congratulations to all of our students and all of our faculty and staff for completing this spring semester in what are unprecedented circumstances. We're so grateful for all the extra work that everyone's done. It's really impressive, and to see some of the social media posts that have been out there from faculty and staff, as well as from students and students' families, has really been uplifting for me to think that we got through it. So tomorrow's the last day of finals. And I want to congratulate everybody on a job very, very well done. I also, wanted to just recognize again, you can see on the screen that if you have questions as we're going along through the program today, please send them to askus@lewisu.edu. We'd appreciate hearing the questions. And we have had some that have come in through the week, so we're going to try to address those at the outset. I did want to address, there were some kind of general questions about in what ways does the governor's new announcement about this 5-phase approach change the way that we at Lewis will approach our way of doing things. So I want to say a couple things about that. What you see on the screen right now is a map of the state of Illinois. And in that top right corner of the state, that kind of lightest blue area, is the zone that we are in at Lewis University. So it includes all of Cook County, as well as, of course, Will County, which is where we are. And so we'll be, in some sense, the collected data from that whole region will impact Lewis University and how we proceed through the summer. The second graphic that I'd like to show you is the phased approach that the governor announced, which has 5 phases, and we're currently sitting in phase 2 as we are here right now. And as we move through the summer, we hope that in June we will move into phase 3. And then in order for us to be in a situation where we can actually hold classes of 30, 15, 20 people, we would have to be in phase 4. And the graphic is small. Phase 4 is where higher ed and other schools can open up. So otherwise it's less than 10 people, which is what is in the phase 3, which we hope will be what we will experience in our region sometime in June. That would be the expectation, that when this stay-at-home order concludes, that we'll be able to do more of that stuff. Before I turn over to Dr. Sindt, what I guess I wanted to say about all of this is that we will continue to pay very close attention to what the CDC says, as well as what the governor says, and we will comply with all of those regulations. Our priority is to keep the Lewis community safe and healthy. And we have, I think, tried to do that and accomplished that through the spring semester. We've been very fortunate as a community to have very low numbers, and I'm talking about the entire 50,000 people that are a part of our alumni base and our employees and our students, that in terms of what we have heard from people, the virus has, not that it hasn't had any impact on our families, because it has, both from a health and certainly from an economic standpoint, but that we have really, I think with all that we've done, kept our community as safe as we possibly could, and we are committed to continuing to do that. I did, want to say that in general, the few themes that came in the greatest amount were around commencement, around both refunds for room and board, as well as CARES Act, and then these issues about what will summer and fall look like, especially questions that families have about what the fall will look like. So we're going to address all of those topics today, and at this point I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Sindt to talk about both issues around the delivery in summer and fall, as well as some questions that have come in around commencement. And as I hand it over to you, Chris, I just want to say again, congratulations to all of our seniors. We are so proud of you for getting through your last semester, but also, feel the loss that you've had with not being on campus for your last semester and your last few weeks, and the loss that's been around the relationships you built over these 4 years with faculty, staff, and of course your friends. So we really feel for you and your family, and Chris will talk about both commencement and then what for our students that will be staying with us and returning in the fall, what that might look like. So Dr. Sindt.
Okay, thank you, and hello everyone. And I just want to add my congratulations to our students who are completing the semester, and especially to our graduates. And congratulations, and you've made it to almost the end. And then a really special gratitude, I just cannot say it enough, to our faculty who are continuing to make it through this semester and have a little bit more time to work to conclude those final grades and complete your work in this unprecedented and really unusual term. And not only have our faculty been just completely committed to transforming their classrooms, but also increasingly we're hearing so much about what our staff and faculty are doing in their communities and in our community to support people in need. And I just get so inspired by every time I hear a new story about that, which is many times a day. So first of all, about commencement, I'll start there. I just want to make sure I announce clearly that we have rescheduled commencement for currently our plan is to do commencement in the December graduation period. The time will be the dates will be Friday, December 18th and Saturday, December 19th, and there'll be information about that in our commencement website area. We are commemorating this semester's commencement group with a special video and online prayer service that will be posted online on Sunday, May 17th, our commencement day. And so I encourage everyone we will encourage everyone, I encourage you now, and we'll keep reminding you to log on and watch that special video and prayer service on that day, on May 17th. One other quick question about commencement I want to address has to do with the honor cords that came up last week. We would like all of our students who are qualify for honor cords, are eligible for university honors, will have an opportunity to pick up their honor cords at any time between now and December. You may wait until December and receive them in connection with preparing for the December commencement ceremonies, or depending on the stay-at-home order regulations and so on, make an appointment to come to campus to pick them up at any time. So we'll have more information about how to make those appointments on the commencement website as well. And then I just want to say, first of all, that the President Livingston mentioned our response to our interest in response to the governor's announcement earlier this week, and the phases that are announced in terms of the Illinois recovery. I think we're all really grateful for that clarity of those messages, and we're still working through our interpretations of them, speaking with both our police and our health professionals here on campus are in daily contact with our local Will County Health Department, as well as frequent contact with the Illinois Department of Public Health and other agencies, so that we are both interpreting together always what the guidance is, but this applies to the phases as well. But I would say, generally speaking, we're imagining if things trend the way they are, that we will be entering into what they call phase 3 in the summer, and as things continue to progress, knock on wood, we will be moving into the phase 4 environment into the fall. So most of our plans assume those things, but obviously we're making contingency plans if they don't. The phase 3 environment for the summer would be very similar to the way we've been describing it in these conversations and in our public announcements and our emails over the last few weeks, where we are continue to make preparations for one-on-one instruction, from flight to one-on-one or social distanced lab experiences in connection to undergraduate research in the summer and so on. We continue to model that and continue to talk with Will County Health about the possibility of that or the probability of that. And I'm still very hopeful that that's going to happen. Regarding the fall, a reminder that we will make a public announcement next week with, before May 15th, with more clarity around our plan for the fall delivery of classes. And I'm so grateful for not only a faculty group who are talking through the scheduling and the way we are going to teach in the fall in the best possible way, but many other groups on campus are working through the public health dimensions of the kind of campus that we're going to have in the fall. Again, the governor's descriptions of phase 3 and phase 4 are extremely helpful in terms of being able to actually plan for the types of changes we're going to make to the campus environment in areas such as having face coverings available, making some adjustments to our facilities, doors, and rearranging classrooms so that they ensure social distancing. The likelihood is that, and I guess in all cases we are privileging health and safety, and as I said, in each scenario, first question is how to ensure what practices will be put in place to ensure the health and safety of our community members. Another principle that we're approaching it with is high quality educational experience with this amount of time to prepare and with the experiences of the past semester, the summer terms, as well as our deep tradition of high quality Lasallian education. I'm very confident that we're going to have an incredible experience for our students in the fall. We will continue, as I said last week, to have much flexibility built into any scenario that we go forward with. And we're also, I think I would be safe to say before next week that we're privileging especially the undergraduate first year experience for students who are coming in to the college experience for the first time. We are going to find ways for them to meet in person through our first year experience course called Cornerstone. And then we're also very much in our Lewis tradition and are in support of our Lewis mission, privileging experiential learning, on-campus experiential learning, primarily through our lab courses, trying to find ways to do those first and then move into flexible ways of delivering other parts of our curriculum. I want to make one other announcement before I forget, which is that I promised to do this last week, so I'm doing it today. We have decided, and I'm announcing now, and we'll put that into writing, I think in a letter or email later today, that our summer terms will apply the same pass-fail grading system as our spring term did. We'll provide a date similar to what we did this term at the end of summer when students can choose to switch. And again, I would always be remiss if I didn't remind people that please talk to your professors, your advisors, the chairs of your departments, and so on before making that decision to choose pass-fail grading method to make sure that it's not going to be detrimental in any way to your futures.
That is great. Thank you so much, Dr. Sindt. It's, I just want to reemphasize a couple of the points that have been made. We will, as a university, continue to live within the values that we have as a Lasallian school and as a university in which high-quality education is what we expect from ourselves every day that each of us come to work, whether we're a faculty member or a member of the broader community, and we view every member of the staff as an educator because we all do that together and we work in association. That is a fundamental principle that we have. But the care for each person is also fundamental to our vision of how we exist as a broader community. And so that care in these times really will revolve around making sure that everyone is healthy and that we, as Dr. Sindt mentioned, remain flexible. We will be adaptive as we have been this last spring. And I agree with Dr. Sindt that our faculty and staff have really risen to this occasion and have really done amazing work. And we expect that that will continue to happen this summer, and the education will be great this summer. Summer school does start on Monday. So if you want to take a couple extra classes, or you're somebody who goes year-round, make sure that you sign up for your classes for Monday. Another set of significant questions that came in, as I mentioned earlier, were around issues related to finances. These primarily came in from students and families, but certainly, which is completely in keeping with what we expect from our faculty, we had questions come in from faculty because they've been talking to students who either have been harmed as in their family or themselves financially, and wanted to understand both what's happening with room and board refunds and also what's happening with CARES Act funding. So let me just address really quickly the funding that was returned or applied to student accounts for room and board, parking fees, printing fees, and a few other small fees that people had paid. Those have all been applied to everybody's account. So you can go onto your account under My Lewis, find and see the credit that was applied to your account. Hopefully, we asked last week that you would go in and sign up for how you wanted that, whether direct deposit or a check sent to your address. We need to make sure we have the right address, so make sure you log into the system and fill that out. So that's all been applied, and if you have questions about the amounts or understanding what your bill looks like or your balance looks like on your account, please call us. Both our Bursar's office and the financial aid office are open for business every day, and they'll get back to you by the end of the day, or if you call it 4:55, they'll get back to you the next morning. So we'll make sure that we do that. But we're going to bring in a guest here right now, Mr. Ray Kennelly, who's going to be on with us today. Ray is our Senior Vice President for Enrollment and Strategic Planning, and he is going to address some of the questions around the CARES Act. So Ray, welcome to our show. Ray's coming to us, joining us from his home. And we're really grateful for your presence here today, Ray. So I was wondering, we've had a lot of questions that have come in, Ray, around the distribution of CARES Act funding. Our students are good at research, and they've gone in and they've figured out exactly how much money we received from the federal government and want to know what they might receive, depending on what kind of student they are, and when they might be expecting to receive that. So Ray, if you could talk through the CARES Act process, when students will expect to receive that grant really from the federal government, that would be great.
Yeah, well, good morning, Dave. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be with you. And in regards to the CARES Act, I just want to start by saying that we really appreciate the patience that all of our students and families have shown with this process. From the point in time that the announcement was made of the CARES Act fund and that these dollars would be distributed to the colleges and universities to then be distributed to their students, there's a lot of steps in between that I know students themselves may not fully understand or always realize in terms of the policies, the procedures, the guidelines that we received from the Department of Education in order to understand fully their intention as to who is eligible for and can receive these dollars. So I know it feels like there's been a delay from the student side, but there's a lot of behind the scenes work that had to be put into place first. As you can imagine, anytime with a large bureaucracy such as the Department of Ed and all the schools around the country. With that said, we are reaching the point where we will begin distribution of the funds to our students at Lewis. Our target date for distribution is the week of May 18th. And I think what I would like to do is just maybe talk through the criteria that has been established by the Department of Ed that then Lewis has had to interpret in order to determine which of our students are eligible to receive the funding. So first criteria or the first screen is a student had to be actively enrolled at Lewis during this period when the COVID-19 disruption occurred. So that's essentially that March timeframe. A student had to be actively enrolled at Lewis as of that timeframe in order to be eligible for the funds. The second screen from the Department of Education is that students have to be Title IV eligible, which is a different way of saying is the student would have had to have submitted a FAFSA form to Lewis for the 1920 academic year. So we need to have a record of a FAFSA on file in order for students to be eligible. The additional guidance from the Department of Ed was they asked schools to use financial need as a criteria in the awards to have regard for the need levels of your students. They asked us to come up with a methodology to distribute the funds to as many students as possible that meet the criteria, but to also establish a maximum dollar amount that any one student can receive. The final criteria is that the student has to be enrolled in an eligible program. The best way I can define that is they have exempted from eligibility a student that is enrolled in a fully online program. So if a student is fully online in their study, the Department of Ed interpreted that as your program has not been disrupted by a move to online education. So those students are not eligible. And this would also not apply to students that are classified in an at-large category. That could include dual degree students from a high school that are taking a class at Lewis. Students in some of those specialized categories would not be eligible. So that's in a very broad way the overall criteria for determining our student eligibility. When you apply that to Lewis, out of our 6,100 roughly students enrolled spring semester, that would give us a pool of approximately 3,600 students that are actually eligible to receive the funding from the CARES Act. And in complying with the Department of Ed guidelines to have a maximum limit and award the dollars as broadly as possible, we have two scales of awards. We do have a $1,000 award and a $300 award. Once again, based on criteria such as need and other factors in the student enrollment. And so the process will begin May 18th. Students will be notified from our financial aid department that they are eligible for the funding and the amount they will receive. And then these transactions will be either through direct deposit to the student if we have that information on file for them, or it could be issued in the form of a check. And I'll make a final comment and see about any other questions. I think it's very important to recognize that this is different than financial aid. This is not a credit to a student's existing account. the Department of Ed was very specific in that this is dollars to be directly put into the hands of students to help offset any financial disruption they may have experienced due to COVID. Uh, it is recognized that it may not be cover 100% of what a student might feel has been their disruption, but it is an attempt by the federal government to put some dollars directly into their hands for expenses they might have incurred.
Thank you, Ray. Really helpful explanation. Let me follow up with one quick question, and then something that maybe we can talk about back and forth a little bit. So I guess one of the quick questions is, so how many students will be impacted by these awards? You talked about the $300 award and the $1,000 award. Could you just give me a sense, give the audience a sense of how many students will likely receive an award, approximately, not an exact number?
Yeah, so as we went through the process and went through our enrollment and applied all of those screens that the Department of Ed has laid out for us, the approximate number is 3,600 of our currently enrolled spring semester students will receive some funding, either an amount of $1,000 or an amount of $300 from the CARES Act.
That's great. Thank you. So I guess what I would say to all of our families listening and to all of our employees, faculty and staff, because you may get questions as much as we might get them through Ask Us or a different venue, one of the offices that really does this, to say to people that, if you can wait until the end of the week of the 18th, most of you, if you have a direct deposit, you'll have that direct deposit in. And then if after that you don't understand why you were in the $300 category versus the $1,000 category, you can certainly call the office, and there will be explanations about this on the COVID website. So on our site that has all of the frequently asked questions, we will be outlining the criteria used to distinguish between those students that were determined to be $1,000 recipients and $300 recipients. But if you could wait till the end of the week of the 18th, that would be great. So the other thing that maybe just briefly, Ray, while you're with us, is around this question. So I love the way you explained it initially, that this is not necessarily about need necessarily based on somebody necessarily losing their job. This was an across-the-board approach for the federal government to try to meet students who were impacted by the virus. As I mentioned last week, Lewis University is doing some fundraising for a COVID-19 emergency fund. We're going to try to help students and families who have been significantly impacted because the economy has changed so much and families have lost jobs. So Ray, could you talk just a little bit, very briefly, because I think, we may have you back on in a couple weeks as this becomes more firmed up. But maybe you could just talk briefly about both the difference between the COVID-19 emergency fund that Lewis is raising money for and, again, this CARES Act, just to clarify those distinctions. And then maybe talk a little bit about some of the ways that you're beginning to think. I know we don't have all those criteria laid out because we've been working on the CARES Act distribution, but maybe some of the ways that we're thinking about distributing resources to families just in very general terms that have been significantly impacted by the impact on the economy and the loss of jobs that we're seeing. I know we had another, I think, a little over $3 million people that filed for unemployment. I think those numbers came out this morning. So if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question because I think it's for those of us that deal with this on a daily basis, it becomes easier to understand. But for the general public this can get confusing. So the simple way I would describe it is the CARES Act money that we just talked about from the Department of Education is about the disruption that occurred during this period of time where a student might have experienced an unexpected expense. They had to secure home internet access. They had to quickly move out of their residence hall and travel back home. They had to incur some additional meal expenses because they're no longer a part of a meal plan. So that money from the Department of Ed is about things that occurred in this spring semester that's now completing. The emergency relief grants that Lewis is doing fundraising for and is developing dollars is for as we go forward. We're recognizing that many families, particularly parents, could be experiencing income loss or job loss, which could be affecting their overall ability to meet their family contribution for the upcoming fall semester. And so in those cases, we would ask families to be in contact with our Office of Financial Aid Services to alert us to the fact that they have experienced a job loss, income loss, that is having a negative impact on their ability to be able to afford to continue their enrollment or begin their enrollment at Lewis. That's really important from two perspectives. Students who may not have previously qualified for a federal Pell Grant or an Illinois State MAP grant, in some cases, job and income loss may move them into the qualification for one of those programs. But then separate from that, Lewis is hoping through some of our own fundraising efforts, particularly for families that have documented job loss, we're hopeful through these fundraising efforts that we will have some additional funding in the form of some one-year grants to be able to help families with that immediate economic situation and provide some financial relief to them for this coming year.
Thank you. Really helpful. So we have had a number of questions that have come in, so I want to start addressing those. So Ray, if you can kind of just stay there, we'll see what kind of questions come in as time goes by. But I want to address one question myself and then ask Dr. Sindt if he can address a couple more that have come in. So there's been a couple questions around how are we kind of connecting to both the state of Illinois system, you know, kind of knowledge that the chancellor in the Illinois state system is very close contact with the governor and trying to coordinate those issues. And I guess what I'd want to say about that is, yes, the state system, so the public system in Illinois, they have been coordinating with the governor. We belong to a federation of independent colleges in Illinois, and I have been regularly on the phone in terms of conversations. I serve on the executive committee of that consortium, which has about 50 private colleges and universities in the state of Illinois. And so we lobby as a body, and in some sense together, we serve nearly the number of students that the public schools serve. So we speak with one voice and lobby the government and are very involved in conversations both with the governor as well as with senators and legislators down in Springfield. I will also say that there's been I've been in many calls with senators' offices in DC, as well as on the phone with representatives that serve us in our district, because we, you know, in my mind, I talk to the legislators in DC who serve our students, because that's the way I can talk to them, not solely the person who serves where Lewis stands, but, you know, we draw from primarily around a 50-mile radius, and so I try to talk to those legislators where the majority of our students reside. And so we're in conversations on both the state level and the federal level, both around things related to how to open back up, but also related to funding, additional funding that might be able to help our students to afford a Lewis education. Another question that came in, and these are for you, Dr. Sindt. So from a faculty member, this is from a faculty member, so some questions about whether we'll be able, whether as the kind of things that you're thinking about, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about the subgroup that's working on what the fall delivery might look like. But the question is that, some universities are offering online classes and face-to-face classes and letting students decide which format they want to be in. So is that under discussion as an option for our students? And then another question is around shorter blocks of classes, or potentially starting the semester earlier and doing, this faculty member's heard of schools that are doing either 3.5 to 4 week short courses in blocks, or 7.5 or 8 week courses versus the traditional 15-week. So maybe you could, talk in general about what's going on with that group and who's involved in it, so that the faculty understand that they are being represented. And then, as you said, next week we'll roll out the decisions, but kind of what's being considered and whether these kind of things are being considered by that group.
Sure. I do want to be respectful of the tremendous faculty group that are working on this. So we did form a work group of the Campus Emergency Preparedness team, who is focused on doing the modeling that we've been talking about. And they've met a few times and are engaged in a lot of online dialogue and modeling. All of the examples that were given in that question are being considered or have been considered. And I don't, want to get too far in front of their deliberation process. I do think we are leaning toward a somewhat traditional length semester. I'm trying to be careful with my words there. It might be slightly shorter. Probably very likely to begin on schedule on the regular day, or maybe even slightly earlier if we can build in some time there to make things more flexible. And then it's likely, as I said, to be able to be hybrid delivery, and then adaptable in either direction, to be more in person or to be more online. The part of the question that relates to individual student choice, the way that I've been hearing about it, talking about it with the group and other people, is more in the way that I voiced it as a value, I think, last week more clearly than this week, is that we want individual students to be able to find a way to complete their education at Lewis in the best possible way. So if there are individuals who are compromised in some way and cannot come to campus even in a phase 4 environment, to use the governor's language, we'll find a way for those people to be educated and to be, to engage in the class schedule that they need. I think we're more talking around, in my mind is a kind of Lewis characteristic, or a characteristic of LaSallian education, where we will meet each student where they are along this path, rather than a kind of choice between online or hybrid. I think we will develop a method and a schedule that will be excellent, and then we'll attend to each individual student's experience of it.
So, and this question, it may involve both Ray and you, Chris, but a question came in from a faculty member asking, how will we support students who do not have laptops or Wi-Fi if we are in a hybrid or online environment in the fall? I know we've done a lot of that work this spring, but maybe you could just talk about what we've done,
yes,
and then what we will do, and then it may involve kind of certain students needing coming to financial aid office and saying I can't do this, and and maybe you can address that, and I don't know if we will need to bring Ray in on that or not.
Yeah, so we have have a big head start on that question now that we've experienced this spring semester, have a practice of loaning laptops to students, and have done a lot of that this term. And I'm not 100% sure the method for that, so maybe somebody could text me about this, but I believe it's the library or CASE is the primary conduit for students to request that particular technology and to get loaner laptops. And I think in general, and this would apply for our staff as well as our students, the need for to privilege the purchase of more laptops is actually something we've talked a lot about, you know, and sort of shifting what our priorities around are around our what we're spending our technology dollars on. And so we not only have we developed a system to distribute them, we're also going to buy more to be able to have more available to our students who need them. And I would say a similar thing for hotspots. There is a hotspot locator on the COVID-19 website, and we are really closely tracking the way that the hotspots are developing locally. And I know that many students live further away than locally, but we're thinking about having a whole range of things from being able to hand out mobile hotspots to creating a hotspot that people can come to on campus, to improving, and knowing that there are going to be more and more of those popping up across the region, because there is a need beyond our need around that. But we're very closely tracking that.
Yes, and I think we've learned a lot. I mean, to your point, we've learned a lot in this process of doing spring, and each week that went on in the latter part of the spring semester, we had more and more faculty and students coming to us and needing different pieces of that, whether it was just a hotspot or just a laptop or both. I will say that we are very aware, and Dr. Sindt and I think all the faculty are well aware of the challenges that are posed for some of our students. It can be difficult if you live in a family in which there are 5 of you that are now home, and normally there are 3 people at home, and you have a variety of siblings, and maybe now because of whatever's going on, an aunt comes to live with you and there's an extra dog in the house. It may be difficult to study. It may be difficult to find a place where you can do your work. So we are trying to be very aware, and to Chris's point earlier, it's very LaSallian to just try to be present to the students where they're at in their lives and try to meet their needs and understand their needs. So everything from being immunocompromised to trying to deal with finding a Wi-Fi hotspot, we will continue to address on a case-by-case basis, and we have incredible professionals here at Lewis that address that. So a question for you, Ray, if you're still with us. There's a question from a faculty member: do graduate students qualify for any of the CARES Act relief funds?
Yeah, and I'm glad that question was asked so I could clarify that. Graduate students are eligible as long as they fall under the broad criteria that we discussed earlier. So the answer is yes, graduate students can be included in the receipt of CARES Act funding.
Great, thank you. At this point, we don't have any more questions coming in. Dr. Sindt, do you have any kind of closing remarks that you want to offer to the community?
No, except thank you for your patience through all of this and your tenacity in getting through this semester on all fronts, and congratulations to those graduates if we don't get another chance to say that.
And Ray, do you have any closing thoughts? We really want to thank you for joining us today from your home and taking the time to both prepare the university for the distribution of the CARES Act funds, but also the way that you laid that out. I think it's much better understood by our families and our students because of what you were able to offer us today. So any closing comments from you?
And no, mostly I'd like to just acknowledge our communications department and all their talents that have made this so easy to do. This was a great experience, made very easy by their talent.
Yeah, I want to second that. I want to, for those of you that could be potential prospective students or you're a sibling of a current student and considering degrees in communications that include this beautiful studio for radio and TV that we are in right now. And the faculty are amazing with decades and decades of experience producing great shows. And don't blame the content of this show on our faculty. They have done an amazing job of allowing Dr. Sindt and I to come to you once a week for the last few weeks, and now bringing in Ray to the conversation. And in the coming weeks, we plan to bring in other people from campus into the conversation to address other issues that we know are on the top of people's minds. So we'll be reaching out to other members of the community. I'd like to close again with my gratitude for all of our employees for all the amazing work they've done. Congratulations to our students for making it through the semester. For those of you that have one more final, good luck on your final this afternoon or tomorrow. And deep congratulations to our graduating seniors and those that would have received their graduate degree, either their master's degree or their doctoral degree. As Dr. Sindt mentioned, we will have a virtual commencement kind of celebration, so to speak, of your accomplishments that will be available graduation weekend or commencement weekend. So congratulations to all of you. Please stay healthy, stay safe, and we will be back next week with some more information. Continue to send in your questions, and God bless those of you that are with us and all the rest of the Lewis community and everyone that you care about. Have a wonderful weekend.